A doctor told a guy that masturbating before sex often helped men last longer during the act. The man decided, "What the hell, I'll try it." He spent the rest of the day thinking about where to do it. He couldn't do it in his office. He thought about the restroom, but that was too open. He considered an alley, but figured that was too unsafe. Finally, he realized his solution. On his way home, he pulled his truck over on the side of the highway. He got out and crawled underneath as if he was examining the truck. Satisfied with the privacy, he undid his pants and started to wank. He closed his eyes and thought of his lover. As he grew closer to the big finish, he felt a quick tug at the bottom of his pants. Not wanting to lose his mental fantasy or the orgasm, he kept his eyes shut and asked, "What?" A voice said, "This is the police. What's going on down there?" The man replied, "I'm checking out the rear axle, it's busted." The officer said, "Well, you might as well check your brakes too while you're down there because your truck rolled down the hill 5 minutes ago." A family is driving in their car on a highway when a frog suddenly crosses the road. The husband, who is driving, is able to stop the car at the last possible moment. He gets out, takes the frog, and carries him to the side of the road. The frog thanks the man and tells him that he will grant him a wish. The man says, "Please make my dog win the next dog race." The frog asks to look at the dog, which jumps out of the car. The frog notices that the dog has only got 3 legs and tells the man that he thinks it is almost impossible to fulfill his wish and asks that the man will tell him another wish. The man responds, "Well, then please help that my wife will win the next beauty contest." The frog asks him to tell his wife to get out of the car. Wife comes out of the car and approaches the frog. Then the frog turns to the man and says, "Could I please have another look at the dog?" A woman goes to a doctor named Dr. Wong. She says, "Doctor, I can't get a date. No one will go out with me." In a very thick Asian accent, Dr. Wong says, "Take off clothes and get on all 4 hands and knees." She does. "Now crawl to wall." She does so and looks back at him. "I know what wrong." "What is it, doctor? What do I have?" "You have Ed Zachary disease." "Ed Zachary disease? What is that?" she asks. Dr. Wong says, "You face look Ed Zachary like you ass." A man placed some flowers on the grave of his dearly departed mother and started his way back toward his car when his attention was diverted to another man kneeling at a grave. The man seemed to be praying with profound intensity and kept repeating, "Why did you have to die? Why did you have to die?" The first man approached him and said, "Sir, I don't wish to interfere with your private grief, but this demonstration of pain is more than I've ever seen before. For whom do you mourn so deeply? A child? A parent?" The mourner took a moment to collect himself and replied, "My wife's first husband." A wife goes on a retreat for work. When she returns, she finds a pair of panties in her dresser that do not belong to her. Furious, she questions her husband. The husband says, "I have no idea where they came from. I don't do the laundry." So, the wife goes to the maid and questions her. Indignant, the maid replies, "Madam, how should I know? These panties don't belong to me. I don't even wear panties. Just ask your husband." A wife got so mad at her husband, she packed his bags and told him to get out. As he walked to the door, she yelled, "I hope you die a long, slow, painful death." He turned around and said, "So, you want me to stay?" A husband and wife were golfing when suddenly the wife asked, "Honey, if I died, would you get married again?" The husband thought for a moment and said, "No, sweetie." The woman said, "I'm sure you would." So the man replied, "Okay, I would." Then the woman asked, "Would you let her sleep in our bed?" And the man replied, "Yeah, I guess so." Then the wife asked, "Would you let her use my golf clubs?" And the husband replied, "No, she's left-handed." While on a road trip, an elderly couple stopped at a roadside restaurant for lunch. After finishing their meal, they left the restaurant and resumed their trip. When leaving, the elderly woman unknowingly left her glasses on the table, and she didn't miss them until they had been driving for about 40 minutes. By then, to add to the aggravation, they had to travel quite a distance before they could find a place to turn around in order to return to the restaurant to retrieve her glasses. All the way back, the elderly husband became the classic grumpy old man. He fussed and complained and scolded his wife relentlessly during the entire return drive. The more he chided her, the more agitated he became. He just wouldn't let up for a single minute. To her relief, they finally arrived at the restaurant. As the woman got out of the car and hurried inside to retrieve her glasses, the old geezer yelled to her, "While you're in there, you might as well get my hat and the credit card." A man checked into a hotel. There was a computer in his room, so he decided to send a mail to his wife. He accidentally typed the wrong email address, and without realizing, he sent the mail to a widow who had just returned from her husband's funeral. The widow decided to check her mail, expecting condolence messages from relatives and friends. After reading the first message, she fainted. The son rushed into the room, found his mother on the floor, and saw the computer screen which read, "To my loving wife, I know you are surprised to hear from me. They have computers here, and we are allowed to send mails to loved ones. I've just checked in. How are you and the kids? The place is really nice, but I am lonely here. I have made necessary arrangement for your arrival tomorrow. Expecting you, darling. I can't wait to see you." Ever since I was a child, I've always had a fear of someone under my bed at night. So I went to a psychiatrist and told him, "I've got problems. Every time I go to bed, I think there's somebody under it. I'm scared. I think I'm going crazy." "Just put yourself in my hands for 1 year," said the psychiatrist. "Come talk to me 3 times a week, and we should be able to get rid of those fears." "How much do you charge?" I asked him. He replied, $80 per visit. "I'll sleep on it," I said. 6 months later, he met me on the street. "Why didn't you ever come to see me about those fears you were having?" he asked. "Well, $80 a visit 3 times a week comes to $12,480 a year. It is an awful lot of money. A bartender cured me for $10. I was so happy to have saved all that money that I went and bought myself a new ute." "Is that so?" With a bit of an attitude, he said, "And how, may I ask, did a bartender cure you?" "He told me to cut the legs off the bed. Ain't nobody under there now." A police officer in a small town stopped a motorist who was speeding down Main Street. "But officer," the man began, "I can explain." "Just be quiet," snapped the officer. "I'm going to let you cool your heels in jail until the chief gets back." "But officer, I just wanted to say," "And I said to keep quiet, you're going to jail." A few hours later, the officer looked in on his prisoner and said, "Lucky for you that the chief's at his daughter's wedding. He'll be in a good mood when he gets back." "Don't count on it," answered the fellow in the cell. "I'm the groom." A woman and her 10-year-old son were riding in a taxi. It was raining and all the prostitutes were standing under the awnings. "Mom," said the boy, "what are all those women doing?" "They're waiting for their husbands to get off work," she replied. The taxi driver turns around and says, "Geez, lady, why don't you tell him the truth? They're hookers, boy. They have sex with men for money." The little boy's eyes get wide and he says, "Is that true, Mom?" His mother, glaring hard at the driver, answers in the affirmative. After a few minutes, the kid asks, "Mom, what happens to the babies those women have?" She replied, "Most of them become taxi drivers." A man and his wife were having some problems at home and were giving each other the silent treatment. Suddenly, the man realized that the next day he would need his wife to wake him at 5 a.m. for an early morning business flight. Not wanting to be the first to break the silence and lose, he wrote on a piece of paper, "Please wake me at 5 a.m. He left it where he knew she would find it. The next morning, the man woke up only to discover it was 9 a.m. and he had missed his flight. Furious, he was about to go to see why his wife hadn't wakened him when he noticed a piece of paper by the bed. The paper said, "It is 5 a.m. Wake up." The female dentist pulls out a numbing needle to give the man a shot. "No way! No needles! I hate needles," says the patient. The dentist starts to hook up the nitrous oxide and the man objects. "No way! I can't do the gas thing. The thought of having a mask on suffocates me." The dentist then asks the patient if he has any objection to taking a pill. "No objection at all," the patient says. "I'm fine with pills." The dentist then returns and says, "Here's a Viagra." The patient says, "Wow, I didn't know. Viagra worked as a painkiller." "It doesn't," said the dentist, "but it's going to give you something to hold on to when I pull your tooth." My wife and I went to the state fair, and one of the first exhibits we stopped at was the breeding bulls. We went up to the first pen, and there was a sign attached that said, "This bull mated 50 times last year." My wife playfully nudged me in the ribs, smiled, and said, "He mated 50 times last year." We walked to the second pen, which had a sign attached that said, "This bull mated 150 times last year." My wife gave me a healthy jab, grinned, and said, "Wow, that's more than twice a week. You could learn something from that one." On the door to the third pen was a sign that said, "This bull mated 365 times last year." My wife was so excited that her elbow nearly broke my ribs and said, "That's once a day. You could really learn a lot from this one." I looked at her and said, "Go over and ask any of them if it was with the same old cow." An extremely modest man was in the hospital for a series of tests, the last of which had left his bodily systems extremely upset, to say the least. Upon making several false alarm trips to the bathroom, he decided the latest episode was another and stayed put. He suddenly filled his bed with diarrhea and was embarrassed beyond his ability to remain rational. In a complete loss of composure, he jumped out of bed, gathered up the bed sheets, and threw them out the hospital window. A drunk was walking by the hospital when the sheets landed on him. He started yelling, cursing, and swinging his arms violently trying to get the unknown things off, and ended up with the soiled sheets in a tangled pile at his feet. As the drunk stood there, unsteady on his feet, staring down at the sheets, a hospital security guard, barely containing his laughter, and who had watched the whole incident, walked up and asked, "What the heck is going on here?" The drunk, still staring down, replied, "I think I just beat the crap out of a ghost." So after landing my new job as a Walmart greeter, a good find for many retirees, I lasted less than a day. About 2 hours into my first day on the job, a very loud, mean-looking woman walked into the store with her 2 kids, yelling obscenities at them all the way through the entrance. I said pleasantly, "Good morning and welcome to Walmart. Nice children you have there. Are they twins?" Of course, her children were at least 2 years apart, and while they share common features, they certainly didn't look like each other. The woman stopped yelling long enough to say, "Hell no, they ain't twins. The oldest one's 9 and the other one's 7. Why the hell would you think they're twins? Are you blind or stupid?" So I replied, "I'm neither blind nor stupid, ma'am. I just can't believe someone fucked you twice."